Coming up, we're talking Semaglutide with Dr. Cullison. As Dr. Cullison says, the glutides are here to stay. And we get into Semaglutide, which of course is the active ingredient in what is known as Ozempic and Wegovy, which are made by the big pharmaceutical companies. But there's a lot of information out there on Semaglutide. There's a lot of myths about it. There's a lot of misconceptions about it, rumors of side effects, how long you need to take it for, if it's something you need to take forever, if it replaces good diet and exercise, if it helps you burn fat. So we talk about all of that. And no, it doesn't help burn fat. It helps suppress your appetite. And I also talk about my personal experience with Semaglutide, which is still not complete. So we talk about all of those things coming up next here on the Mojo Podcast Studio. Semaglutide. All right, we're here back with another episode of the Mojo Podcast Studio with Dr. Cullison. And today is all about, maybe this should have even been episode 1 because it's such a popular topic, and that is Semaglutide, also known as...
Trade names are Ozempic and Wegovy. That's how most people know it.
Yeah, and this thing's been, for what we've been seeing at Mojo, very popular, especially among the female crowd. But men are taking it too. I'll say I'm on it right now. About to end my 3rd month on it, so I'm eager to talk about my own experience with it. But tell us, Dr. Cullison, Semaglutide, what is this magical concoction that everybody's advocating for?
Well, sure. So Semaglutide actually has been around for a while. It just didn't get real well known to the public to the last few years. It was FDA approved for diabetes, type 2 diabetes first, and type 1 diabetes, but it's just basically just for diabetes. But if you go back, it was, discovered many years ago. And do you want to hear the history and so everybody understand it?
I do, because there's skeptics out there.
Okay.
And I think the history is important.
Okay. So studies many years ago, they were finding in mice and rats that glucagon, like peptide, -1, we're just going to call it GLP-1 or just GLP. That's a molecule that's already in our body, and it has a lot to do with our hunger. It binds to little receptors in our upper intestines and such. And so they got to where they've isolated this little peptide. And of course, again, as we talked in another episode, a peptide is just a small short chain of some amino acids together in different combinations, makes it a different peptide from one to the next. Insulin is a peptide. Everybody's sure about peptides. But anyway, that's the type of molecule that it is. Anyway, you could inject some mice with this little peptide, and its half-life was only about an hour and a half. It's very short-lived, but they would eat less. They had less of an appetite. It was noticed. That was many years ago.
Is that what they were trying to do with this study?
Well, actually, interesting, yes, because what they had found earlier in that is that you could create tumors. This is not a fun topic to talk about in research, but a reality that you could create little pancreatic tumors or other tumors in mice or rats that would secrete GLP overabundance, and then they wouldn't eat. So that's how they got started. And so they realized that, okay, that has a lot to do with your appetite control. And so, but it's not very valuable if you were to start just giving people GLP, the natural one that's already in us, GLP-1, and because if you get an injection of it, it's gone in an hour and a half. So you can't give yourself an injection every 3 hours or so. That wouldn't make nobody's
going to practical.
Yeah, right? It's not. Yeah. The compliance would be terrible. Mm-hmm. So science moves on, and all the studies were trying to make that peptide modifications to it to where it had a longer half-life. And the first well-known one was liraglutide, which is still available. Mm-hmm. And is
that like the 90s, 80s?
Oh, no. Well, this would have been 15 years ago or so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been around. Yeah, no.
Liraglutide, okay.
Liraglutide, yeah, and I forgot the trade name of it. It was marketed. But so it was a daily shot. Mm-hmm. Peptides typically have to be given an injection because you put a little protein or a small protein or in your mouth and you eat it, it's going to destroy the peptide bond. So they're working around it. There's oral versions of this, but this is moving way ahead. But so anyway, liraglutide was a daily shot. And it was effective. Semaglutide came out later, and it's just the craftiness of making that GLP-1 binder a longer half-life. So it's very similar to a GLP-1. It's class of peptides in your body called incretins that have a lot to do with your signaling and your digestion and whatnot. And I can't remember if it's incretin or incretin. It's been so long. All I've ever read about it, and I haven't really heard anybody say that word in a long time. So it's part of that family that has to do with your gastrointestinal tract and has a lot of these signaling. And so anyway, so semaglutide came around, and so you can see that it was FDA approved quite some time ago for diabetes and then later for weight loss.
So it has been approved by the FDA for weight loss.
That's correct.
And is this who discovered semaglutide? Was it that Danish pharmaceutical company that makes Ozempic? Novodisc?
Yes. So I don't want to do anything to get me in trouble with Novodisc. So they have patents. Right. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I believe the patents are on the dosing and the delivery system.
Okay, not semaglutide itself.
I don't think so. I could be wrong, so I apologize to the public, but I believe I read it's not the case. So the actual molecule may have been discovered, but then it got patented and its delivery mechanisms and studies. Novodisc did fund those big studies. Okay. You can see their name in there. The ones it's in the New England Journal of Medicine. And by the way, if something makes the New England Journal of Medicine, such as these for weight loss and diabetes, those are big studies, double blind, crossover and all that, with the placebo and all that, and they're in there. And if it made that means that's the most editorial reviewed journal in the world. So it's pretty legit. Mm-hmm. Didn't make some side journal of some anecdotal baloney. Mm-hmm. It's legit. Mm-hmm. So it was really critically reviewed of safetiness and side effects, and it's all right there. Right. But you can't just you can Google these articles, but you're only going to get the abstract unless you have some sort of medical membership to actually see the full article.
Pay the $9.99 a month.
Maybe, I don't know.
So when semaglutide was discovered, it was Novodisc. Sorry,
Novodisc.
Novodisc is the one that figured out how to package that and make it where it can be administered in the fashion that it is known as
in the dosing, and that's I believe that's correct. Yes, if you go back and look at those articles where they were, the way it has to be dosed is it's an injection, a little subcutaneous injection, typically given around your torso area, and it's a very small needle, just like an insulin needle, identical. And
sub-Q is into the fat, right? Not into the muscle, just super shallow.
Correct, just past the dermis, into the fat underneath it. Everybody has that, and so it's you can hardly feel the needle. It's like a 31 gauge needle.
I hate needles, and I can't even feel it.
Yeah, it's very tiny. I
still hold my breath, and it never hurts.
So it's just once a week, and so in that, you can go back and look, but the way that medicine is dosed, you start at 0.2 milligrams for weekly for 4 weeks, then you go up to 0.5 milligrams, and then you're going up to 1 milligram, then 2 milligrams, and whatnot, under the guidance of a doctor. And so you titrate it. You don't start out at the big gun doses, but most of those that are studies for the diabetes was all the way up to 1 milligram, but in the weight loss ones, you can look at that big study that was up to 2.4 milligrams. So they were on it for, this is a year or so. Yeah. And it had all these conclusions. It was a very good study. I mean, you can see the control group, the placebo, and then the non. They were very close. 45 years old, a little bit more women than men, and they all had the same comorbidities. I mean, it was a very well controlled study.
So let's pull up. So what semaglutide's doing is suppressing the appetite. It's not burning fat. It's not making you lose weight. It's keeping you from eating what you might have normally been eating. So your appetite is now suppressed. How is the semaglutide doing that? You said it's binding to something in your upper intestine. What's going on there? So
there's GLP-1 receptors for that molecule all over our body. They're even in the brain. I mean, they're all over. And so they don't have a full understanding of that, but at least in your upper digestive tract, it does stimulate the pancreas to a small extent to probably make a little bit of insulin, and also bind to these receptors that are in your intestines, that all over your intestine, but mainly it's in your upper ones. I think it probably binds more, and it just
the peptide itself, these molecules that we're injecting ourselves, that's what they're going to look for. They're going to look for these receptors in the upper intestine.
That's the way that works. A peptide is a signaling agent, and it'll go land on a receptor somewhere to tell that cell what to do.
Got it.
Yeah. And in the end, what happens, it just makes you feel not hungry and like you've already eaten sometimes, like you're fuller quicker and all that. But it's receptors in your heart. There's receptors in your brain. So the extent of what it's doing to those things, there were no side effects of those kind in those studies. You can look. There was not even like 0.1% of those kind of things. Yeah. But it must be that there's more receptors in this area here, more density or more sensitive receptors. Not sure. But that's where it seems to where your side effects come from or there, because it's making your motility slower and just really makes you not hungry. So it's not like, say, phentermine, which was Fen or what the other nicknames that it had, where it really was a stimulant. You know, smoking cigarettes, you know, that suppress your appetite. It's a stimulant. You know, Adderall, which is used for ADHD, it's a stimulant for that ADHD, but it suppresses your appetite. Well, phentermine was probably the best of that stimulant class. Didn't work in that fashion at all. Completely different.
Right.
Different mode of having.
So this suppresses the appetite, and then you said it's a weekly injection, right? So if I take it on a Sunday, and by the time I'm ready to take it that following Sunday, you know, on the 6th day, maybe Saturday, is appetite almost fully back? I mean, I know my experiences, but what should it be? What's
well, okay. I've seen some people where it only works for 2 days, and you know, until they get up to higher doses, and then some people they don't really notice they took it until 3 or 4 days later. I've seen both, and you know, when you
that cord's in your way? Sorry,
that's okay.
I can move that.
So, you know, when you do a medicine for a trial, you know, this compliance is always an issue.
Yeah.
So if you were to design the drug to be done every 5 days, people are going to get all mixed up. And your compliance is going to be an issue, and it's going to be hard to get a study to be approved by the FDA, because if you have compliance issues in the study and then you get bad results, you're the millions of dollars are spent. Right. And so it's just like, why, you know, people think, well, I take my blood pressure medicine once a day. We're like, well, how come it's not every 14 hours, or how come it's not every 20 hours?
Yeah.
Because that might be better, but nobody's going to do that. So weekly injection seems to be the most convenient for compliance.
You can give or take a day. You're not going to die if you take it.
Correct.
Within 5 days
absolutely.
or 8 days. Okay. Yeah, and I've noticed, you know, in talking to other people that are you know, taking semaglutide, it is a very personal journey and experience. Some people, especially in that first tier, if they've got a lot of weight to lose, it's not doing much, and they want to give up on it. And you know, I know sometimes you'll accelerate to that second tier based on the patient. So you know, for me, you know, it took a while to get started, but then, man, once I got really on that second tier, my appetite really got suppressed, and it was weird because you're just like, I guess I'm not going to eat breakfast today, and it's like already noon, or it's almost 1, and you're kind of like, you almost have to remind yourself to eat. And then there's some days, and I was telling you, sometimes if I do a morning workout, my system's all fired up and I'm hungry and I can't miss that day. So it is kind of uneven for me personally. But for the person that says, and we'll talk about side effects in a second, but for the person that says, oh, it's just not working for me, and they've been on it for a week or 2 weeks, what would you say to that person?
Well, a couple things along with what you just said. Now, we're using the word tiers. Mojo created that word, by the way. Wow. And I try to do it to help explain to patients and my nurse where we are with a patient.
Okay.
Mainly because there's other medicines like tirzepatide, which we don't need to talk about now, but it also has that same dosing. You got tier 1 for a month, tier 2 for a month. And so when I'm speaking in tiers, you can be talking about any glutide.
Yeah.
You with me?
Yeah.
So, so that first month, 4 doses weekly, we call that tier 1. So, yeah, so when somebody during that first month, it's interesting. I don't know whether some people are more insulin resistant than others, you know, but some people start getting results in that first week. There's some that just can't even tell. They don't have a side effect, and they'll go through even up to the 3rd month, and they still don't have much side effect, and they can't tell they're taking it. Now, that's not usual, but it happens. And sometimes they have to get up to that 4th tier, what I call, which is the 4th month of dosing. Now, we at Mojo, under my guidance, will follow these people closely. We interact with them during the time they're on these medicines. We just don't have them get the medicine, see you later.
Right.
If they've done those low doses for a few times and they have no side effects and no weight loss, then I will make the decision maybe to go ahead and start tier 2 a little faster. Now, we only do that kind of decision during tier 1 and tier 2 dosing. I won't do that on the more stronger dose. You're going to end up doing it longer the way that's mostly been studied. And am I being risky? No, we interview those people. If they're not having any results, no side effects, then I feel that it's safe to, in the earlier stages, to go ahead and do a little progression.
Will it eventually work with every person?
No.
So there are people that just, whatever reason, are immune to semaglutide and it doesn't work for them.
Well, you get a few small numbers that they don't meet their goals. They might have lost some.
Right.
But 2, it's unfortunate in some that to get to the dose they need to lose the amount of weight they want, the side effects become too much.
I see.
And So that becomes a challenge. And plus, it's a reality that, you're paying for this out of your pocket. And the larger doses just cost more.
Yeah.
So some people are fortunate that the lower doses, which are less expensive,
Right.
They get the results they need, and so it's something they stay all the time. So there's a factor of cost. It's
Yeah.
and and some people at some point just get scared, and they want to come off of it. They wonder what it's doing, and we educate the safetiness of it, and I can show them literature-wise the safetiness of it.
So someone that would be having side effects, and in my experience, just knowing what those could be is nausea. I haven't had nausea from it, but the constipation and what was the other thing that's common?
There's bloating, kind of a bloating distension,
yes.
Abdominal cramps, kind of a thing,
The
and
bloating
headache.
and constipation. Haven't had headaches.
Yeah, the headache has been reported. And like I say, those receptors are in the brain, so I'm not really sure what that is, but it's usually very mild, and
Sure.
it's not that common. It's not doing any harm. It doesn't cause like migraines and stuff like that.
Would you basically, would you be able to kind of ballpark percentage of patients that get nausea?
The nausea, bloating, and constipation, if you lumped all that together, you can get up to 70% in some studies.
Yeah.
Now, these are mild, though.
Yeah.
If you're to the point of nauseated, like you're going to feel like you're going to throw up, you're at the edge of it, or you are throwing up, you need to back off your dose.
Right.
I truly think that a lot of the people that have been on this medicine, I think the medicine is fantastic, okay? I think it's the future. The glutides are here to stay, is what I would say in America. It is something that truly works or tackles the problem that we have in the American culture, the way we eat, what we eat, and how often, all that. And we can talk about that later, too. But it is the perfect antidote for that because, even on these wonderful weight loss programs that people pay fortunes for, they fall off so quick.
Yeah.
It just, and unfortunately, the way we're raised in this country, it's hard to battle those instincts that we have on eating. So, so back to the safety profile. Those are the most common side effects. Now, all the other ones, they get in real low in numbers, like pancreatitis, like we have on our questionnaire when you come in here that you have to fill out. Mm-hmm. That addresses a lot of things that we do in this office, but particularly I have the one on there if you had a history of having pancreatitis. That, and we ask the questions about the immune syndromes or either the thyroid cancers that are in your family line. If anybody circles yes on that, I hope nobody purposely circles no so they can get the drug, we won't give you that medicine.
And so let's take one of those at a time. So the pancreatitis, which is what? What is pancreatitis?
We have a pancreas, just like if you have you have a pharynx, when you get a sore throat, that's pharyngitis.
Right.
Well, when you have a pancreas and it gets inflamed, it's pancreatitis, whether it's infectious or inflamed. Or
how does one know if they have pancreatitis?
Oh, you get pain right through underneath your rib cage, right here in the middle, and go straight to your back.
Sounds like heartburn.
But it goes straight to your back. It'd be different.
It's sustained. It's always there. Or
you'll notice, and you won't want to eat. And typically if you get a pancreatitis, you'll go to the emergency room.
Oh
yeah, it's bad enough for that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how do they fix it?
You don't eat. There's a treatment for it. You can't eat for a little while, and you can get rid of it, but you will come off the medication.
Is it pancreatitis surgery, like an appendectomy, or
no? It'll go away.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it just goes away, and they'll give you some medicine. Okay.
Right. You'll end up having a trip to the hospital and all that, and you'll come home and you'll have all this, and you'll feel like, man, this was the worst thing that ever happened to me. It'll make you sick, just like the flu. It's not the flu, but you were sick.
Yeah.
But now when you stop using the medicine, I haven't seen a case where it doesn't go away. You just can't use that medicine anymore.
Right. You're talking about semaglutide.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any of the glutides, any of them.
Right.
And like the percentage of that is like 0.2% or something on the studies.
Of the population. What about
of those that use? Yes.
What about the thyroid cancer? What's the crossover there?
I don't know the answer to that. It's very tricky. There's something with your endocrine system. If you have a history of having that, the risk becomes a problem.
What would manifest itself as the symptom? What would happen?
I don't know the answer to that because earlier studies already had dictated that you can't take this with that, and so I don't even know what they are. So in those studies that I read, that was an exclusion criteria as well as pancreatitis for you to even be in the study.
Got it. Okay.
But the pancreatitis is the fact that it causes it in a small number of people, that if you've had it before, it's likely to make the tendency more likely to happen while you're on the medicine. So it's kind of we know not to give it to you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the tiers are interesting because when I took my initial one, it was, my first time. It was a little nerve-wracking injecting yourself on something, but not feeling, watching the solution go in, like, oh, that's not that much. Now that I'm on that third tier, and what is it, 50 units? It's going, I think.
Well, that depends on the concentration that you have.
Okay,
The third tier is probably 1 milligram.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can do tier 2.5, which is 0.75 milligrams. That's something
you're
I
watching it go in your body, and you're like, that's a lot.
Well, what we usually do, it's a lot of volume is what you're saying. So they make it different concentrations. When here at Mojo, if you're somebody that we're giving it to you weekly so you can test it out without commitment, we have ways to get you shipped to your house to where it's more concentrated, to where now that third tier is a little bitty volume, but it's the same dose, same milligram.
Yeah. Okay.
So, you're right. Some of those concentrations, you get up to like tier 4, you're like, woo, this is a large volume. And you're like, okay, this is something, you've made it to that. You're starting to lose some weight. You know you're going to be on it for a while. Why don't we just get you a bottle that's got it more concentrated? It's more cost effective for you.
So, and just to clarify, we obviously aren't making this or compounding ourselves. We have relationships and accounts with other compound pharmacies in the United States. But talk a little bit about, there's some kind of confusion, and we've had some calls, from patients or prospective patients asking about this. Like, well, I don't know if I want to get it from a compound pharmacy. It seems like that's a little sketch. I'd rather get it from one of the big pharma companies like Novo Disc. And what do you think about that? Like, what would you say to someone that would comment on that?
Well, I would first say that certainly those are reputable pharmaceutical companies, and that's, certainly so. What I would say is that compounding pharmacies are not a shady industry. Those are monitored and regulated by the federal government. They have to have purities that are reported and tested. So if you go to a large, long-standing, reputable compound pharmacy to get your medicines, we're not going to mention all those today, but there's a lot of them. But but there's also a whole bunch of little bitty ones. And so I'm not saying your mom and pop local ones aren't bad either. You can do it incorrectly, but those compound pharmacies, to be licensed for that, you got to have a hood and all this kind of fancy stuff to make it.
Right.
Those are highly regulated
by
the federal government.
Okay.
You've got these things you've got to do, and I've heard podcasts of those who have compound pharmacies that complain that they have to do more regulatory stuff than big pharma. Right. I don't know whether that's true or not.
Right.
But I'm fairly comfortable. We were using compounding pharmacies in my private practice for years on all kinds of stuff. I mean, we never had any quality control issues before. Right. I mean, it was just fine.
It seems like a spotlight has been shined on these compound pharmacies in the wake of semaglutide and peptide therapies, and they're starting to make a lot of things that are popular that maybe some of the big pharma would want a chunk of the pie on. And this goes into our episode 3 on peptides, where we talked about, and I don't want to retrack it, but kind of just the FDA's involvement in some of that, and peptides being cut from the list of approved medications. Semaglutide was not one of those, even though it's categorized kind of as a peptide. It was not cut. In fact, it's been asked by the federal government that these compound pharmacies make semaglutide because the big pharma can't keep up.
It's the shortage and other complicated reasons, but no, there is nothing illegal about a compound pharmacy putting some sort of medication with semaglutide in it. And so, I saw a press release on one pharmacy that apparently had some ingredients that were not approved and all that. Well, they knew exactly what they're putting in there. They were adding two things together. The other one had a potential positive benefit, and that was a selling point. That wasn't a mistake or and I knew what you were getting if you were to get that particular one. I'm just saying. And so I don't want to go up against, what I'm saying is that, yes, the FDA, you getting semaglutide from a compounding pharmacy is not illegal.
Yeah. And it's safe.
I feel it's safe, yes.
And we have our compound pharmacies that we do business with, and I know that you do a lot to vet them and to research them and to talk to them and make sure that they're very safe and reputable. And I think that any patients coming to that, it's just up to the patient. You need to, because there's a lot of Mojo type wellness clinics that exist in the United States that are, and certainly online, where it's very faceless, and we've advocated against that. Talk to your doctor in person, and you can do that at Mojo, but just be careful where your provider is getting these from when they're going to compound pharmacies, because like you said, some are very small, and some have a situation where the bad apple spoils the bunch.
Yeah, we if a patient's getting the medicine here, we're not going to hide who the manufacturer is.
Sure.
I mean, honestly. And so, I've seen people go to they can only get the medicine and go to the clinic and get the shot, and all they see is a syringe, and with the patient's name on it.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't have we'll show
it's
you.
Funny because, and I hate this argument, but I'm going to use it, is like if you go to a car accident and you're in the hospital and someone's injecting you with something, you're not asking, hey, is that from a compound pharmacy? Where did you get that from? How do I know that that's the best stuff?
I mean, I used to treat women's bladder conditions, and some of that stuff had to be custom made for some of the operations I did, and they would be on the medicine infused into their bladder afterwards. That you can't just go get a prescription for that. That has to be made by a pharmacy locally that put it together.
Right.
They have to have the approval. So this is not a rare thing or cowboys in the West, as somebody said. No, this is all regulated and well controlled.
So do you think? The FDA did just take away some really well-known, well-thought-of peptides. Do you think they could take away semaglutide one day?
Well, they may get to the point where they may not allow compound pharmacies to provide them. Yes, they're in control of that for whatever reason.
Right.
They may, they have the authority to do that, and it's not because we're having problems. It just may be that they're like, all right, well, it's time that this or that, whatever it may be. I don't know. Yeah. That's things that are beyond us, but. Right now, they've actually come out and said it. I mean, compound pharmacies can provide semaglutide.
Yep.
And so, I mean, I've come to enough. I've written that medications for loved ones, great friends. Not that I've been they come and asking me for it, and we do the appropriate clinical evaluation. We just don't hand it out. So, I mean, I'm not scared of it at all.
You trust it enough to give it to family and friends is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, and there's been people close to my life that have taken it and have advocated for it as well. And I haven't heard anyone really have a really negative experience. The symptoms and the side effects are real. The constipation, I think, is probably the most common one I hear. But there's ways to mitigate that. And I know we're going to have another podcast down the road on how to help with gut management and constipation and things like that. Yeah. There's things you can do.
Well, I would have to say the nausea is probably the most common, but it's really just the medicine doing what it's supposed to do. You have to get over a little nausea. You just don't want to eat as much. Yep. And I've got some more things to say about what it does as well, in addition to the cutting down the appetite. But most of those things that are on there, on the studies, is really kind of the medicine doing what it's supposed to do, and you're having to adjust. That's why the 2.4 milligram dose, that's finally they just don't start by, boom, giving you 2.4 milligrams. Your body has to adjust to it to some degree.
Yeah.
And along the line of the controversies, I know they're out there, like people, their stomach doesn't move anymore, there's no more motility, I'm ruining all that. Okay, well, first of all, let's look at, how many millions of people are on this medicine anyway? It's a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, all the compound pharmacies are bogged down because of this one medication, because it's so popular, and it's popular for a reason. But, then you hear these little one-offs where people regret ever getting on the medicine. I mean, I feel for those people. I'm sure they're legitimately telling the truth.
Yeah.
But that is such a small number, and that is one of the reasons why here at Mojo, you will have follow-up visits that I'm involved with. Whether you're coming to the office and getting it, or whether I prescribed it and you're getting it shipped to you or whatever, you have little e-visits where I'm calling you like, hey, tell me exactly what your symptoms are. Because some people they want to lose weight so bad that they just went through the dosing as it says on the bottle. They just kept on marching on, man. And, they'll endure a bunch of stuff they don't need to be enduring.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? This medicine's not for you, or you're going to have to back down a tier.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just close monitoring.
What? So what would you? I guess. When are you done? When are you done with semaglutide? Each person.
It's a good question. So some people have the goal to want to lose 20 pounds. We've had people just want to lose 10 pounds. We have some that want to lose 50 pounds. Okay. Well, we'll tier them up, follow them, and first and foremost, as you know, and what I remind every patient that comes in here, I'm sorry, if you come see me, I'm going to bore you for about at least 20 more minutes about exercise and the importance of dieting and how to eat and developing these habits. Because while you're on semaglutide is the optimal time to learn these good habits, because it's easier. Mm-hmm. Whether you have a problem with eating a bowl of ice cream every night before you go to bed, or you have this problem with eating a snack all the time, because what semaglutide will do is it will take down your cravings for, let's say you like to eat at a Mexican restaurant. You and your husband or you or your friends do that every Friday. But now when you walk in there and you smell the smell, it's not like you're going to throw up on the porch there. Yeah. You're like, this isn't really doing it for me. You know what?
No, it's funny you say that, because I love Mexican food. And we went in and I wasn't that hungry, but those chips came. The chips and guac and salsa, and I had like 10 of them. And I thought I was going to have a whole meal, and then I was done. Like, I was just I didn't want to eat dinner anymore. It was the weirdest thing.
And think about that. It's not because you're throwing up or you're making a scene or anything like that.
Yeah.
And in those studies, nobody, big studies, good studies, nobody became malnourished. It's not like it's going to make you not eat.
No, yeah.
It's curbing everything to a reasonable amount.
Right.
That you're titrating in the. I mean, it's perfect.
But my habits and I was conditioned to
Sorry,
go
I
to a
didn't mean to say
Mexican.
perfect. It's awesome.
My habits of going to a Mexican restaurant, though, was to get in there, sit down, order a beer, and crush a third of the basket, probably more of my fair share of the chips and salsa, you know? That's just what I've been doing for 20 years, over 20 years. And then I got in there, I was just full. But my mind, it was my muscle memory to just go in there and start it on the chips. I didn't even want chips after like a few of them.
Right.
And then it's like I felt like I should order something, but I didn't want to order. But you know, you don't want to be rude and not order dinner.
And it's nothing with Mexican food either. It's just what you did a lot. Some people love to eat pizza, but you know, all of a sudden that pizza, the pepperoni smell coming in there, all of a sudden you're like, man, that's just not doing it for me anymore. So it's curbing these cravings.
Yep.
And I'll take it a little further. Alcohol. Yeah. So there are two great big studies going on now that are funded that it is controlling alcohol addiction amazingly well, and also cardiovascular prevention. You can look it up. There's a family trust fund, not pharmaceutical, that's got a study out of Oklahoma that are doing it. That it meant a lot to them to fund this study to prove that, and it will be FDA approved for this. You watch, it won't be long. But now I need to go back to answer your question. I was just. When do you stop it, and how?
Hold on, you're all over the place, but because I do want to stay on the alcoholism thing, because I think that resonates with a lot of people. A lot of people have either themselves or people in their life that suffer from various degrees of alcoholism, and I've definitely experienced a way reduced craving in alcohol. And I was a big tequila guy, still probably am, but I haven't dipped into my tequila collection in a long time. And the beers are done. Like, if I drink a beer, I'm done for the night. Like, just not because I'm drunk, but because I'm full, you know? So, it's really, and then you do it less, and it really does affect your cravings.
Well, that again is creating a habit that's good for you. And plus, you know, alcohol, which I'm not bagging, I drink as well, but it really messes up, you know, it really spikes the insulin and sugar, and it really makes it hard for you to lose weight when you just drink some drinks on the weekend. Yeah. It just backfires the whole thing. It offsets it. So that adds to the benefit of losing weight. Yeah. For instance, you know, I'd never say anybody's name, but, you know, like, you get a guy that I've seen that just drank beer every weekend and did this and that and was a big dude, and all of a sudden he got on this just for the intent of losing weight, but all of a sudden he quit doing the drinking. Yeah. He's out running marathons, and all of a sudden, and, you know.
That's what we hear.
And this medicine does nothing to your muscle building. It does nothing to your energy or anything like that. It's just the sheer fact that you've lost the weight. Now all the inflammation that weight carried on you and all that, your cardiovascular response improves. There's your benefit right there. And that is another. They're doing studies to show that it's going to be a cardiovascular prevention medication. It's going to have less heart attacks. They're already doing the studies. They noticed it already in some of the studies they've done. So now they're officially targeting. That's the thing with the study. You're like, hey, did you notice all these great little things that happened over here? Well, you can't FDA approve something on that. You have to go back and intentionally do the study. Okay, we got these people that are either diabetic or non-diabetic with the same comorbidities that are these amount of drinkers. You got this heavy drinker, you got a moderate drinker. Let's do the study.
So wait, what I'm hearing you say is down the road, maybe in a few years, people might be prescribed semaglutide to help curb alcohol addiction.
Yeah, I'm certain of it.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And that's amazing. And then I'll tell you, here's a little secret on that too. Some of these compound pharmacies have liraglutide and semaglutide in forms that you could just take on the weekend. So like little throat lozenges or drops, looks like a little cough drop. You're like, you know, I just want to take it on the weekend because it's only going to be 24 hours. It's not going to be the whole week long.
Right. So if you're a weekend
binge drinker or eater, you know, when you're in the week, you're so regimented, it's good. But all of a sudden, you're hanging out with the guys and doing this. Well, you know, on the way home from work, you throw in this throat lozenge. I'm not encouraging this, but you can do that.
Can you inject yourself on the way home from work? Would that be?
Well, you'd want to do it with liraglutide because the semaglutide lasts a week. But the liraglutide, you could do it on Friday nights, Saturday nights,
but not in the car, not on the way home.
No, I'm not.
Sorry, I had to throw you.
I didn't catch your.
You were on the track.
I didn't catch your cleverness.
But back to your original point on when is the right time to get off.
Yeah. Okay. So again, I'm involved with these patients. So what I tell them is this: after all that counseling of the things you need to be doing while on this, we're not just going to give you a drug and you're out of here. Okay, I'm checking on you if you're doing intermittent fasting or calorie restriction or avoiding being smart with your carbohydrates, doing these things and cutting down on your saturated fats, we'll do that podcast another time, is the problem with saturated fats. But anyway, we will monitor you. And so I know what your weight goal is. We've got it on paper, and we're asking you these goals when we communicate with you. Well, if you start to where you're getting close to your goal, well, we don't need to keep tearing up the medication. Then I'd like to keep you plateaued on the medicine. And if you start losing even more weight, then we know we need to bring you down. But you might just need to stay on that dose, and you be on it for a little while. And then I'm going to keep asking you, do you want to start coming off? I wouldn't stop cold turkey. I'd start tapering off. Not because there's withdrawals of it. That's not the reason why. It's not like stopping phentermine cold turkey or your Xanax cold turkey. Those are different. You can't do that cold turkey. I'm doing it for the fact that what we've done is we've established a new set of habits that are good.
Right.
And you need to slowly come off and still continue to be thinking about those good habits. You don't want those habits to hit you back cold turkey, because a year later, and you haven't been on the semaglutide for a year, you're back to yourself again. You're still you. We didn't reversibly change anything. It's no different than somebody that's 20 and 40. Their metabolism's not the same. Their hormones aren't the same. I'm sorry, we don't have a way to put you back.
Right.
So what you've done, though, is at least you've created great habits, and you and I can continue to talk about ways to keep those habits going. We have other little things we've got that I'm not going to talk about right now. But no, my goal is to get you off of it if you want to in a reasonable way.
Yeah. I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of. They don't want to get addicted to something where, like we've talked about testosterone. Testosterone is a hard thing to come off because their body starts making it naturally differently, but semaglutide is different. It's not like your body's making semaglutide.
Yeah, it's not habit forming, but you've relied on its taking care of your cravings.
Yeah. But I know someone, he has a peanut butter jelly sandwich every night before bed. And then when he started taking the semaglutide, he stopped doing that. And now, again, with the tortilla chips at the Mexican restaurant, you're not thinking about it anymore. You're not going to the cupboard to get the bread and the peanut butter to make it. And then when you stop doing that for a month or 2 months or 4 months, and then you're now off the semaglutide, you're not used to going and doing that. And that muscle memory is kind of gone. Same with going to the gym. Now you've lost that 5-10 pounds, and you're not embarrassed to go to the gym now. And you're going to the gym, and you've been going for 3 months or 6 months, and you get off the semaglutide, but now that's part of your routine. And those are real stories that we've heard from patients.
People's sex lives got better. People's self-image got better. They got out of the house more. Now, there's all those things where people talk, well, it made my skin sag. I got they call it Ozempic bug, but I got nothing against Ozempic, but that was a slang that came out. And there's a reason for that. It's for losing weight. It's not the medicine doing that. It's for losing weight. But I think a 6-month period is a reasonable goal. I'm telling you can stay on if you want. I'll support you on that as long as you keep seeing us and we're involved. But if you're somebody that wants to get your goal and come back off, we'll work with you on that. But like you said, you do it long enough, you forget about those habits you had. Because we used to watch Saturday morning cartoons, eat 3 meals a day. If you don't have breakfast, you won't do good in school and all that kind of stuff. Well, this is the culture that's been there for years, decades of your life, that is a habit that is entrenched in us, and it's hard to get rid of that.
Yeah.
It really is. And so at least give yourself a little time to learn that habit, stay on that habit for a little while, and then slowly come off of it. And, because it's going to hit you like, man, you know what? I hadn't thought about that beer in a long time. Now I'm going to want it. Well, now you understand. And so you at least have a little bit of willpower built into you because you've made a habit of not doing it. You've got a little bit more, you don't have as much chink in your armor.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It's you have a forward way of thinking about it and doing it, and you have a better chance of success of not getting back on those.
Sure. Now, what about the person that's curious about the long-term side effects of semaglutide? Has there been any studies about that or anything that's come out about obviously negative of taking semaglutide long term?
Yeah, it's a good question. So no, it hasn't been around for 3 or 4 decades. What happened to people 3 or 4 decades ago, and what happened to them that all of a sudden they developed some kind of a cancer, or they developed something wrong with their vision or something like that.
You're saying it hasn't been around.
I'm giving you a scenario. So we don't have that length of time to be able to say that. So since it's been out, which has been over a decade, let's just at least say that it's been used commonly over a decade, because it was used for diabetes first for quite some time. And there have been no real study or anything that's jumping out that's showing long-term effects of it.
So it's like 5G network. No, it doesn't. It's fine. we're all using it.
Is it all just going in our brains?
No, but I mean, there's a lot out there, is what I'm saying, that could cause cancer. But there's been for the last 15 years that semaglutide's been around, there's been no documented cases of that.
I mean, unfortunately, in the history of medicine, this went through the appropriate channels, of great studies that made the New England Journal of Medicine that got FDA approved. Yeah. Big science was shown.
Right.
And, well, didn't they do that with Vioxx? I mean, didn't that go through the big channels? And but all of a sudden, people were having strokes, on FDA-approved medicine. So nothing's perfect. So I'm not telling you it won't happen. I feel good about it. Mm-hmm. It's very similar to something that's in our body. Mm-hmm. That's the way a lot of drugs are made, over time. And that's cleverness. You modify something that's already in you to...
Do you think it'll continue to evolve as a medicine? Like you said...
The glutides are here to stay.
Yeah.
Tirzepatide, people know it as... there's a trade name of that molecule being in medicine called Mojo, and now they've got the one for that medicine. Now it's FDA approved for weight loss, so it's got two versions as well. One's for diabetes, one for weight loss, but they're the same medication, guys. Sorry. It's just a packaged... Okay.
Yep.
And I think it's somewhat more potent. Yeah. It has, so you get a little more out of it for its side effects. It's kind of like what semaglutide was to liraglutide, except there was a bigger gap in that one. So semaglutide and tirzepatide are a little more similar in their effectiveness, but they've got two more out that are getting ready to be FDA approved. So
that's not
that are glutides
or
correct.
Oh wow,
there are two others.
So these things are going to just keep getting better and better, like a flat screen TV in the '90s. Yeah. I mean, soon it's just going to be it's going to be cheaper? Do you think it'll be cheaper?
Well, all of it will drive the price down.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how that is. Competition always drives price down. So,
right.
And that's just the way everything is. It's the way plastic surgery is. When you just had a few plastic surgeons everybody went to, it's so expensive. But now, plastic surgery is a lot more common in our culture. And, you've got competitive pricing, and it's brought the price down. It's just like anything else. But, when somebody comes out with a new product, a new drug that's patented, and it's got a patent, if it's substantially different than the ones in its predecessors, then people are going to be wanting to come to that. Yeah. And it could cost money. But these are all very similar. Semaglutide.
So there's enough variation between semaglutide and tirzepatide and whatever's coming out or about to come out that these aren't encroaching on each other's patents in prescription meds. So there's enough, I guess, molecularly different about them.
Yeah, they'll have different patents. They're molecularly different. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Huh.
It's no different than Cialis or Viagra. Those are the same class of medicines. They're very similar, but they've got differences. They did not.
Okay. So there will be options out there. Maybe someone has an adverse reaction to semaglutide, but they don't with tirzepatide.
That can happen.
Yeah. Is tirzepatide, why haven't we heard as much about that than semaglutide? Is it newer?
Yes, it is newer.
Okay.
I mean, everybody's heard it in the form of Mojo.
Okay.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? I mean, that's been out there for a good bit. And
do you prescribe?
Yes. Tirzepatide is available, yes.
And from a compound pharmacy?
That is correct. Okay. Same ones, and it actually came down in price recently, believe it or not, in the last couple of weeks, I noticed. Yeah. And we've had good success with that. I'd say probably 5% of our patients that are on glutide are on that.
Okay. So most are on the semaglutide.
Correct.
Still. Yeah. What about, any... what's I guess an example of a patient that you wouldn't want to put on semaglutide or tirzepatide is besides what you already talked about, the pancreatitis or the thyroid issues?
Those are the main two.
Yeah.
Now the type 1 diabetics. Now those people need to be closely followed by an endocrinologist. Whatever I'm saying does not supersede an endocrinologist's words here. Okay, they're the master at endocrinology. Okay, and so that person needs to be followed by endocrinology. But they can come to here, and I've seen not just here but other places where insurances are challenged to pay for the medication, and so people are having to, they can't just pay. People can't afford $1,000 a month.
Yeah,
and so that has driven some of them, and they've even had their own doctor say, look, you're going to have to go to a clinic that will provide it through a compounding. We just don't do that here. And so outside of the insurance realm. And so there you go. I mean, people have to get their medicine.
Right.
And that's bringing people's hemoglobin A1C down, and in addition to their insulin or not. And so, again, if they come here and they want our assistance, that's fine. But I tell them, you will still be following your endocrinologist, and you will tell them exactly what we're doing here because I'm just trying to help.
What about the people we've had some young patients come in. What is there an age limit on as far as how young they should be?
We won't give it to anybody under 18, but they've already done obesity in children studies in the New England Journal of Medicine. It's there. You can find the abstract. It's already been studied.
It was semaglutide. Mm-hmm. Oh, so it's safe for even people under the age of 18.
Yeah, but we won't do that here. But yeah, right. It's been done. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You probably have to wait till they're done with puberty and all that, and that would go along with a lot of medicines,
Sure.
But that's kind of when the obesity, starts in a lot of them anyway. But
yeah.
People are different. I mean, there are people that can live to 65 that are pencils.
Yeah.
And how they like that, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for explanation, but then there's some that,
yeah,
they get to be 25 and it's just, they're already struggling.
Yeah.
And are you saying, well, they have not been properly counseled, or they're just not, they don't have the willpower, or they just aren't in an environment to where they're susceptible to great habits and views? You can do this all day long. Yeah. I've been hearing this since, 30 years ago when I started medical school, whenever it was, and you're right. I know you would be hard on those people, like those people getting bariatric surgery. Gosh, they never had a great counselor and all that. Well, you know what though? It's not right for somebody to judge somebody else. Everybody's different. The chemicals in our brain, are not the same. And I do think here at Mojo we make a point of telling them what's the right way to eat, what's the right way to carry out yourself, what's the right way to read a label on the back of a can of beans or whatever. And, that's a reasonable thing. A lot of these people have already been through all this.
Yep.
Why are certain celebrities giving up and the Weight Watchers giving up? There's a reason for that.
Right.
What people don't think about is the American culture. I love America, but the culture here of easy access to food, 3 meals a day, easy to get snacks. I mean, when I was young, if we had ice cream at my grandfather's house, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
And that's no more. It's not as much of a big deal anymore.
No,
it's just, we're in America. Things are cheap. I'm sorry, they are. You can get food readily at your fingertips, and it's in our culture. We eat these things, and, you kind of got to back out of that. There's great things in the American culture, but then there's things that probably weren't great.
Yeah. Well, my experience with it has been great. For about 8 solid months before I started semaglutide, I was working out 3 times a week. I was playing soccer on the weekends, and I'm just north of 40, and physical activities, like soccer is very cardiovascular. I was doing a lot of calisthenics. I was doing hard weight training, heavy weight training, and I was more or less on a keto diet. It wasn't strictly keto, but it was low carbs, low sugar. Watch what I ate. I wasn't losing any weight. I was really consistently right around 188 to 192. And sometimes I'd go down to 188 if I was behaving a little extra over weekend. Usually it came down the weekends, like you said. If I had a pizza over the weekend because I was watching the football game with some friends, I'd go up to 192 and it'd take me all week down. But I was never thinking I'd ever see 170 something again. Semaglutide, 10, 12 weeks later, I got into that third tier and I hit 179. And my diet, I mostly, when I did eat, it was very similar to what I was eating. I would have a piece of pizza now and then, but most of the time I was still eating the low carb, low sugar diets. But between the alcohol reduction and just the appetite, food cravings going down, I got down to 179. And that was, again, like after the 12th week, let's say. And now I've been on it, another 6 weeks. So, and I'm still right around 179. I haven't gotten down. My goal was 175. And in the bottle that I was given, or prescribed, it was supposed to be a 3-month supply. I haven't taken it every week. I've taken about 2 weeks off just to kind of give myself a little bit of a break. Not that I felt I needed it. I think it was just I took a break. So I've probably got about 2 weeks left of it. And maybe if I hadn't taken that break, I'd be at 175. But I'm feeling great. I mean, I feel great about everything.
Well, this is a good point. So a lot of people have in their mind that they're going to get this kind of a glutide of some kind, and they're going to sit around feeling nauseated and feel like crap.
Yeah.
And but you're just losing weight. You're not eating. It's not like that. I have a great combination of everything's money, but I mean, you can get on semaglutide. We can optimize your hormones and get you on some kind of peptide therapy if you want. These are all options.
Yeah.
There are people on a low dose semaglutide or a little dose that they need, and they are thriving in the gym. They can.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything to build muscle, but you can get yourself losing weight and do additional programs that we have that truly.
Yeah.
I mean, so the fact that you feel great, see what you're saying right there?
Yeah.
That right there is a testimony that, this is just not for the slug that sits behind the TV and I'm taking some Glutides so I don't eat that pizza. You can thrive on this medication.
Well, and it works. I guess my point of saying all that, it works. Well, I was doing the diet and exercise thing, and I couldn't get that weight. I couldn't lose that weight. Now, I think everybody can do more in the gym. I know I could have pushed myself and done more cardio and eaten better to get maybe down into the mid 180s, lower, maybe close to 180. But man, it was going to be so hard. The semaglutide just took those appetite cravings away, and it just, there it was.
Think about those that are your age that were big athletes and that are suffering a lot of injuries, and they can't play soccer.
Yeah.
They can't go out, do enough to get their heart rate up.
Right.
It's very difficult. So they have to, so they're being even more strict on the dieting. They have to do more, and it's a challenge. And you're right. You get over 40. That's an example. I mean. Okay, I was going to tell you something, a funny story, but
please do.
What happens is you get to where you can do the same exercise, you can do the same eating that you did 20 years ago, and you will not get the same out of it.
Yeah.
It gets harder and harder. And those things like the keto diet, I've done it. The zone diet, I've done it. The Mediterranean diet, I've done it. The Atkins diet, back when it was popular, I did it.
Yeah.
And after a while, you plateau on that.
Yeah.
And also, it's so limiting.
Yeah.
You've brought yourself down to such a narrow band of food.
Yeah,
it's not the way to go. Yeah. I mean, I think they're fine. I think the keto diet for a short period of time is great. In fact, I learned some stuff from that on my own body and just learning about how it worked. There's something to that, and it's just part of my dieting education to the patient is not going on a keto diet, but there's some principles from that I borrow.
Yeah.
And explain to them how to eat over a 24-hour period. So again, when you stop the semaglutide for 2 weeks or whatever, it's not like, man, let's go to the Mexican restaurant.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
No, I didn't.
I know, it's not what I'm saying.
So good.
You didn't automatically just came back on you and you're your old self again.
Oh yeah, my weight didn't spike up. No, it was fine. It was just I took a little break. But I mean, I feel like the semaglutides, like you're in traffic and you're going and stopping, going and stopping. That's your regular life. Like, yeah, I'm doing good with the diet and exercise. I'm getting to where I need to go. It's still 5 miles up the road, but I'm getting there. Semaglutide's like, oh, I think I'm going to go in that carpool lane. It looks empty when you're just flying by everyone. And you're getting to where you go faster. And I think that it's just, when you get to and arrive at your goal, and that's what so when the bottle's out in a couple of weeks and I've arrived at my goal, I have a decision to make. Do I go get more semaglutide and kind of feather off it like you just suggested? Do I stop cold turkey and see what happens? I'm kind of interested to see what happens, but a lot of my habits, I think have been modified, but I guess I won't know until I get there.
That's right. One thing I'd add is that, when you start to lose weight, whether it be 10 pounds or say you lost 30 pounds in 3 months, because we haven't addressed this, some people talked about how they lost some of their hair, their skin got really saggy, and they didn't like. Well, when you're here, we tell people about things to do to preserve your hair or regrow your hair. We do that here as well, but it's important for you to take some biotin. You ought to look into that, and other things to keep your hair thick. There's certain shampoos you can just get them from, I'm not bragging about Amazon, but that's just a place a lot of people shop. Mm-hmm. But it's important to do those kind of things so that your skin and your hair stays robust. And because it's typically, that's a reversible problem. Yeah. That's a reversible thing that happens, but it scares people, and it's not because they're sick. You see what I'm saying?
It's just rapid weight loss.
It is, yeah. I mean, the thing is, I got a bald spot on the back of my head when I went on low carb or either of these keto diets, and I did lose some weight, and all of a sudden my dad was making fun of me, and I got this spot back here, and I'm like, am I unhealthy? I mean, I'm still eating good and all that kind of stuff, and that's what it was. Mm-hmm. And so I had to start doing things to build that back up, and I kept my weight down. Mm-hmm. And so I think the body just, there's something to that. It could be the inflammatory effects of of the fat breakdown or loss. We don't really know. I mean, I'm sure there's a study out there. I just don't know it. But I have found that that's a reversible thing. You're just going through a phase of body change, and you can fix that.
Yep. That's good to know because, we have some patients who talk about thinning hair or actually hair loss. Both men and women. So, and women, that's the last thing they want is to be losing hair.
And those are people that were doing that regardless of whether they're on the semaglutide. We actually haven't had anybody on the semaglutide who complained of that. They just came in complaining of that already.
Right. Gotcha.
Some people have already lost 50 pounds when they come in here, and they're doing a great thing, but then they're like, I'm stuck. I can't go any further. I've tried everything. I'm doing strict with my diet. They're exhausted.
Right.
I just want to lose this other 20 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, so they're already doing great things. I mean, I still educate them my thoughts. I still got to tell them.
Yeah.
And I think I probably annoyed some people, but I'm going to make them listen to that. That's the only time I'm going to do it, because I don't want to be known as just a pill pusher.
Wrap it up here. Can you think of another medication that's come out in the last decade that's been just so vastly important to so many people's lives as the semaglutide?
No, that's probably the drug of the decade.
Yeah.
Just like Viagra was when it came out. I mean, that was the drug of the decade. The statins, when those came out for the cholesterol, I mean, my goodness, that was pretty amazing. I mean, I know there's more, but when it comes to blood pressure, it's kind of the same old thing. That's a very good question. I wish you'd asked me that ahead of time. I'd have thought about that.
Well, you can make up for it down the road on another podcast. But I will say the other thing, the component of this is this all started for me by getting my blood pressure checked. I'm sorry, my blood panel. And you had mentioned my LDLs being high, and one of the ways to do that was to lose some weight and change my diet and the semaglutide. So when I'm done in a couple of weeks, I am very excited about getting my blood drawn again, getting those tests back, and seeing if there is a difference.
Well, that'd be a segue to another podcast, is that, that's getting into the longevity part and part of our culture and the why everybody's LDL. Yeah. I've had people in their 21, I just say, it's $3.50 for us to check your lipid panel, by the way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why not check it now when you're this young? So you're going to sit there and let your LDLs be high from the time you're 25 up to your 45 or 50. 50 is the most common time that people forget that check for the first time. Yeah. Foolish.
Right.
Since men,
right.
42% of them die of cardiovascular-related disease in this country, and 36% of women do. That's even if you lump all the cancers together, it's still not as much.
Right.
So you should be tackling that problem early. And that's part of our conversation when you come.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's put a fork in it right there. Dr. Cullison, it's been great. Always is. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.